Hello and welcome back to another lecture. In this lecture, we will use Terraform to install and configure Jenkins on an Ec2 instance. To start, the first thing I want you to do is create a folder on your computer. I'm going to create the folder on my desktop, so I'll right click in here, I'll select New, and I'll create a new folder. I'll give the folder a name, I'll call it Jenkins. Once you have created the folder, the next thing we will do is open this folder in Visual Studio Code. To open the folder in Visual Studio Code, select File and select Open Folder. Then browse to the location where you created the folder. I created the folder on my desktop and I called it Jenkins. I'll select it and click Select Folder. Once you have opened the folder in Visual Studio Code, the first thing we will do is create our shell script. Our shell script is going to contain all the commands that we will run to install Jenkins on an Ec2 instance. To get all the commands that we will run to install Jenkins on an Ec2 instance, let's go to the Jenkins documentation. This is the documentation to install Jenkins on an Ec2 instance. To find this documentation, you can search for Jenkins on AWS in Google. I will also leave the link to this documentation in this video's description. If you want to install Jenkins on an Ec2 instance, these are the steps you will follow. But to get the commands we will use to install Jenkins on an Ec2 instance, scroll down. Under Downloading and Installing Jenkins, you'll find the commands you need to run to install Jenkins on an Ec2 instance. So what we need to do is copy all these commands into our shell script. To copy all these commands in our shell script, what I'm going to do is dock this side by side with my Visual Studio Code. Once you have docked the documentation side by side, I'm going to scroll up here. In Visual Studio Code, in your project folder, right-click anywhere in here and select New File. Give the file a name, I'll call it Install Jenkins. Once you've entered the name of the file, enter a period and type the extension. The extension is going to be sh. Type sh after the period. So the name of your file should be install_jenkins.sh. Once you've entered the name of your file, press enter. Once you have created the shell script, the next thing we need to do is copy these commands in here. But before you copy the commands, first you have to enter a shebang in here. So enter something like this: hashtag, ! /bin/bash. Once you've entered bin bash, press enter. Then all we have to do is copy all the commands from the Jenkins documentation into our shell script. So I'll start here. This is command number 1. I'll copy it, paste it here. Then I'm just going to go down, copy all these commands and paste it here. I'm going to copy command number 2. I'll press enter in here and paste it here. So you can see what's going on. I'm going to drag this out a little bit. The second command under number 2 is 1 line, but they broke it into 2 lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it 1 line. To make it 1 line, just press backspace and remove the / here, but make sure there's a space between the repo and HTTPS. Press enter. Next, copy command number 3. Once you copy it, paste it in here. I'm going to close the Explorer so you can see everything better. Then press enter. We are going to copy this next command. Paste it here. And I'll copy command number 4. Press enter and paste it here. Scroll down. We will copy command number 5. Press enter and paste it here. For command number 5, where we have sudo yum upgrade, Here, we can also enter space -y. This is going to add the yes option when the command runs. The next thing we will do is copy command number 6. Press enter and paste it here. We'll copy command number 7. Press enter and paste it here. Next, scroll down under the section configuring Jenkins. Once we have installed Jenkins, we will need to run this command here to get the initial admin password for Jenkins. So all we need to do is copy this command here. In our shell script, press enter and paste it down here. These are all the commands we need to run to install and configure Jenkins on an EC2 instance. Once you've added all the commands to your shell script, save your file. I'll select File and I'll select Save All. I'm also going to maximize my screen so you can see what the shell script looks like. Then I'll open the Explorer again. The next thing we are going to do is create the Terraform file that we will use to launch the EC2 instance we will install Jenkins on. To create the Terraform file, in your project folder, right-click anywhere in here and select New File. Give the file a name. I'll call the file ec2.tf. Once you've given the file a name, press enter. The next thing I want you to do is download and open the reference file I created for this lecture in this video's description. This is the reference file we will use to launch the EC2 instance and install Jenkins on it. What I want you to do is select everything in this reference file and copy it. I'm going to press Ctrl A to select everything in this reference file. Then I'll right-click to copy. Once you've copied everything in this reference file, close it. In your ec2.tf file, paste it in there. Once you've pasted, scroll all the way up. Before you can use Terraform to create a resource in your AWS account, first you have to authenticate. And this is the syntax that will allow us to authenticate with our AWS account. To authenticate with your AWS account, we specify the provider block, and the cloud provider we want to authenticate to is AWS. The first option we have under the provider block is region, and this is the region we want to use. For this lecture, we are using US East 1. So if you want to create your resource in a different region, you will change your region here. The next option is profile, and this is the named profile we have configured on our computer that contains the access key ID and secret access key that we will use to authenticate with our AWS environment. I already showed you guys how to configure a named profile on your computer. I'll leave a link to that lecture in this video's description. To complete this lecture, we will use the default VPC. So this syntax will create a default VPC in your account if you don't have one. If you already have a default VPC in your account, Terraform will use that default VPC. But if you don't have one, Terraform will use this syntax to create a default VPC in your AWS account. For the next syntax, we are using data source to get all the availability zones in the region we are using. For example, we are using US East 1. So what this syntax will do is get all the availability zone in US East 1. The next syntax will create the default subnet in your AWS account if you don't have one. So in your default VPC, if you don't have default subnets in there, this syntax will create one for you. But if you already have the default subnet in your AWS account, Terraform will use that default subnet. This is also how we specify the subnet we want to use. Remember up here, we got a list of all the availability zones in the region we are using. Then to specify the availability zone you want to use in that region, all you have to do is copy data, the resource type, and the reference name, copy it down here, add a period between them. The attributes we want to reference is names. Then we enter a bracket here, and in that bracket we entered 0. This is called indexing. So what this means is, when we get a list of all the availability zones in this region, if we enter 0 here, that means that we want to use the first availability zone in that list. If we enter 1, that means we want to use the second availability zone. And if we enter 2, that means we want to use the third availability zone in the list. The next syntax is going to create the security group. And for this syntax, this is the resource type to create the security group, and this is the reference name I've given it. The first argument is name, and I've entered the name EC2 security group. You can also change this name to any name you want. The second argument is the description, and I've entered the description here. The third argument is the VPC ID, and this is the ID of the VPC that we want to create this security group in. Remember, we created our VPC up here. So all we have to do is copy the resource type and the reference name. Once you copy it, come back down, paste it here. Remove the double quotes between them, add a period, come all the way to the end, add another period, and the attribute we want to reference is ID. So type ID here. The next syntax will create the Ingress rule. This is how we open the ports on our security group. The first port we will open is on port 8080, and this is the port Jenkins works on. For this Ingress rule, the first option is description, and I've entered the description here. For the front port, we will enter 8080. For the to port, we will enter 8080. For the protocol, we will enter TCP. In double quotes, enter TCP. For the CIDR blocks, we will allow this traffic to come from anywhere on the internet. And traffic coming from anywhere on the internet is 0.0.0.0/0. In a bracket, we will enter that CIDR block here. So first enter a bracket and type in double quotes 0.0.0.0/0. The next rule we are going to add is SSH, and this will allow us to SSH into our EC2 instance. Under this Ingress rule, the first option is description, and I've added the description here. For the front port, we will enter 22. For the to port, we will also enter 22. For the protocol, we will enter TCP. In double quotes, type TCP. The next option is CIDR blocks. For the CIDR block, we'll also allow traffic coming from anywhere on the internet. This is because this is the first time we are setting up Jenkins. So usually when you set up Jenkins in your development environment, you can leave your SSH access to anywhere in the world, so you are able to set up everything. But in a production environment, we will always limit the CIDR blocks that can SSH into our EC2 instance to our IP address. CIDR block for anywhere in the world is 0.0.0.0/0. So you can copy this up here and paste it here. The next syntax is the egress rule. For the front port, we will enter 0. For the to port, we will enter 0. For the protocol, we will enter -1. For the CIDR blocks, it is also going to be anywhere on the internet. So we can copy this and paste it here. The egress rule for your security group always look like this. The next argument we have is tags, and I've given it a tag name. I call it Jenkins Server Security Group. You can also change this name to any name you prefer. We will use this syntax to get the latest version of the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. So if you want to launch your EC2 instance using the latest version of Amazon Linux 2 AMI, this is how you specify it in your Terraform file. We will use this next syntax to launch our EC2 instance. This is the resource type to launch an EC2 instance, and this is the reference name I gave it. The first argument we have is the AMI, and this is the AMI we want to use to launch this EC2 instance. Remember, we created our AMI resource up here. So all we have to do is copy the data, resource type, and reference name, copy it. Once you copy it, come back down here, paste it here. Remove the double quote, add a period. come here, remove the double quotes, add a period, then come all the way to the end, add another period and type ID. The next argument is instance type. For this lecture, we will use T2 micro. So in double quotes, type T2 micro. The next argument we will enter is the subnet ID. And this is the ID of the subnet we want to launch this EC2 instance in. Remember, we referenced our subnet up here. So I'll scroll up. This is where we reference the default subnet we want to launch our EC2 instance in. So what I would do is I'll copy the resource type and the reference name. Once you copy it, come back down. We will paste it here. Remove the double quotes. Add a period. Come all the way to the end. Add another period and type ID. The next argument is the VPC security group IDs. And this is the ID of the security group we want to attach to this EC2 instance. Remember, we created our security group up here. So scroll up, copy the resource type and the reference name. Once you copy it, come back down. We will paste it here. But before you paste it, anytime you see IDs with an S, it means you can have multiple IDs here. So what you must do is you must enter bracket first, then paste your resource type and the reference name in there. Remove the double quotes between them, add a period, come all the way to the end, add another period and type ID. The next argument is key name, and this is the name of your key pair. So make sure you already have a key pair in your AWS account. To get the name of your key pair, go to the management console. In the management console, type EC2 in the search box and select EC2 under services. On the left side, scroll down. Under network and security, select key pairs. This is the key pair that I'm using. And one thing I want to note is this key pair is a PEM file. So for this lecture, if your key pair is not in the PEM file format, create a new key pair in the PEM file format. Once you've created the key pair, select the name of the key pair and press Ctrl C to copy it. Once you've copied the name, go back to Visual Studio Code. And under key name, in double quotes, we will paste the name of our key pair in there. When we get to this section, I will explain the reason why your key pair needs to be in the PEM format. The next argument you see here is user data, and I have commented it out. This is an optional argument you can use. The reason why I comment this argument is because this argument will run our install_jenkins.sh file. But the problem is when this argument runs this file, it is going to run all these commands, but we need to print the initial admin password for Jenkins. When you use the user data argument to run your shell script, Terraform is going to run all these commands, but when it runs this, it is not going to be able to print the password on the screen for you. So you still have to SSH into your EC2 instance, run this command to get the password. In my case, I want to automate everything. I don't want to SSH into my EC2 instance to run this command to get the initial admin password. I want to be able to print that password on my screen when I run Terraform apply. That is why I am using the alternative method. Let me show you that method. If you want to skip the step to SSH into your EC2 instance to get the initial admin password, we will not use user data. I'll show you what we will use in this next resource. So here, for the user data, I have commented it out, but if you want to use it, all you have to do is remove the comment and it will still work. For the next argument, we have tags. For the tag name, I'm going to call it Jenkins server. In double quotes, type Jenkins server. Then scroll down. Like I said previously, if you want to automate everything and skip the step to SSH into your EC2 instance to get the initial admin password, this is the syntax you will use. First, we will create an empty resource block. So here where you see resource, and the resource type is null resource, and here you can see the reference name. Anytime you create a null resource in Terraform, basically you are creating an empty resource block. This does not do anything, it is just an empty resource block. And the reason why we create it is so we can add this option to SSH into our EC2 instance to run our shell script command. I will explain what that means. So first, we need to create an empty resource block, and this is the syntax to create it. Once you've created an empty resource block, first we will SSH into our EC2 instance, and this is the syntax to SSH into the EC2 instance. The name of this resource block is connection, and the first option we have is type. For type, in double quotes, enter SSH, because we want to SSH into our EC2 instance. Enter SSH. Then the next option is user. This is the username of our EC2 instance. And remember, the username of our EC2 instance is ec2-user. So in double quotes, enter ec2-user. The next option is private key. This is equivalent to when we SSH into our EC2 instance and specify the path to our private key pair. The name of the key pair that I'm using is ec2_key, and the private key of that key pair is in my downloads directory. For example, I'll go to my downloads directory on my computer. This is my downloads directory, and you can see the private key there. So I need to specify the path to this private key on my computer in Terraform. Here, to specify the path to that private key, I will enter it like this. In double quotes, I'm going to enter the tilde sign. This represents your home directory. Then I'll type /. My private key is in my downloads directory. You can see downloads. So here, I'm going to type downloads. Then /. Then the name of the key. The name of the key pair is ec2_key, and it is a PEM file. So here, I'm going to type ec2_key.pem. In order for you to be able to SSH into your EC2 instance, your key pair has to be a PEM file. So remember, just to explain again, the tilde sign represents the home directory. So what this is telling Terraform is, in my home directory, look for the folder downloads, and in the downloads folder, you'll find my key pair in there. So that's what this means. So in whatever directory your key pair is located, you need to enter that path in here. Once you have specified the path to your key pair, the next option is host, and this is the IPv4 of your EC2 instance. Remember, we created our EC2 instance here. So we are going to copy the resource type and the reference name. Then we will paste it here. We will remove the double quotes, add a period, come all the way to the end, add another period, and the attribute we want to reference is the public IP. So here we will type public_IP. This syntax will allow us to SSH into our EC2 instance. Once we've SSH into our EC2 instance, the next thing we will do is copy this shell script from our computer to the EC2 instance. And this syntax will allow us to copy the shell script install_jenkins.sh from our computer to the EC2 instance. To copy the shell script from our computer to the EC2 instance, we will use the provisioner and we'll specify file. The first option is source, and this is the path to the file we want to copy. The file we want to copy is already in our root folder, so all we have to do is just enter the name of the file here. If the file is in a different directory, you have to specify the full path to that file. But because the file is already in my root directory, all I have to do is enter the name of the file here. So I'm going to type the name of the file. In double quotes, type the name of your shell script file. My shell script file is called install_jenkins.sh. Once you've entered the name of the file you want to copy, in our case, we want to copy our shell script file, then the next option you will specify is the destination. This is the directory on your EC2 instance where you want to copy this file to. We will copy this file to the temporary directory on our EC2 instance. and you will enter it like this. So it is /tmp/, then you will copy the name of the file again here, and you will paste it there. Make sure you have it in double quotes too. So this means that we are copying the install_Jenkins file from our computer, and we are copying it into the temp directory on our EC2 instance. Once we have copied this shell script from our computer to the EC2 instance, the next syntax will allow us to run the shell script on the EC2 instance. This is the syntax we will use to run the shell script on our EC2 instance, and it is remote exec. For the inline value, here we will list all the commands we want to run. So press enter in here. The first command we will run on the EC2 instance is we will make our shell script file executable. So to make your shell script file executable, you will type this command. The command is sudo chmod +x, then add a space. Then the next thing you need to do is copy this here and paste it there. So all this command means is we want to make the install_Jenkins file in the temp directory executable. Once you have added this command to make your shell script file executable, the next command we will add is to run this shell script file. So press enter here, and this is the command you will type to run the shell script file. The command is sh, then you specify the path to the file you want to execute. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here. Just to explain these commands again, first we made our shell script file that we copied to our EC2 instance executable. Once you've made it executable, we execute it here with this command. Also, another thing I want to mention is don't forget to enter a comma between each command. So after the first command, enter a comma, and here enter a comma. Then scroll down. The next argument is depend on. So what we want is, first we want to launch the EC2 instance. Once we have launched the EC2 instance, then we will SSH into it, copy our shell script into the EC2 instance, and execute the shell script. So this resource needs to depend on the EC2 instance. So come to your EC2 instance resource. All we have to do is copy the resource type and the reference name. Once you copy it, come back down. Under depend on, in the bracket, paste it in there. Remove the double quotes between them, add a period. That's all you need to do to make this resource dependent on the EC2 instance. So what Terraform will do is, Terraform will create the EC2 instance first before it SSH into it and run these commands. Scroll down. The final syntax will print the URL of the Jenkins server in the terminal. To print the URL of the Jenkins server, I am using the value join. Then I'm going to join the value http:// with the public DNS of my EC2 instance. If you look, this is the resource type and the reference name of my EC2 instance, and the attribute I am printing is the public DNS name of the EC2 instance. Then we will join it with another colon and 8080. So this value will create the URL of your Jenkins server. This is the Terraform syntax to launch an EC2 instance and install Jenkins on it. The next thing we will do is save our file. Scroll back to the top, select File, and select Save All. Once you've saved the file, next we will open the terminal and run Terraform apply to create the resource in our AWS environment. To open the terminal, I'll right-click on my ec2.tf file and select Open in Integrated Terminal. Then once you've opened the terminal, the first thing we have to do is initialize with our AWS environment. I'll type Terraform init to initialize with my AWS environment. Once you type Terraform init, press enter. It is now initializing with my AWS environment. I'll give it some time to finish initializing. I have successfully initialized with my AWS environment. The next command I'm going to type is Terraform apply to launch the EC2 instance in my AWS environment and install Terraform on it. Type Terraform apply. Once you type Terraform apply, press enter. When you type Terraform apply and press enter, the first thing Terraform is going to do is show you the plan. I'll drag this up so you can see it a bit. The first thing Terraform will do is show you the plan, and here you can see the plan of the resources Terraform will create. Once you review the plan, scroll back down. It is asking you, do you want to perform these actions? We will type yes and press enter. Terraform is now launching the EC2 instance in my AWS account. When Terraform SSH into my EC2 instance, I'll show you that part. Right now, it is launching the EC2 instance. And there you go. Terraform has launched the EC2 instance, and you can see it has SSH into my EC2 instance here. And you can see now it is running all the commands in my shell script on the EC2 instance. Another thing I like about the option we are using is when Terraform is running the command in your shell script, it will show you the output in the console, and that is what you are seeing here. I'll give it some time to finish running the commands to install Jenkins. There you go. Terraform has finished running the command in my shell script and installed Jenkins on my EC2 instance. This is the URL we created in the output to access the Jenkins server. So all I have to do is click follow link. I'll click open. And there you go. I can access my Jenkins server. And it wants us to enter the initial admin password. This is what I was explaining to you earlier. If you would have used the user data argument, at this point, you will have to SSH into your EC2 instance to get the initial admin password. But because we used the other option where we use Terraform to SSH into our EC2 instance before we ran the command, we also print the command on our screen. So if I go back to Visual Studio Code, in Visual Studio Code, the last command in our shell script is the command to print our initial admin password. The command ran here, and you can see the value. So all you have to do is select this value, copy it by pressing Ctrl+C. Then let's go back to Jenkins and paste it in here. Once you paste it, click Continue. Under Customize Jenkins, click Install Suggested Plugins. It is now configuring Jenkins, and I'll give it some time to finish installing the plugins. On this page, we will create the first admin user. So I'll give the user a name. Then I'll enter the password for the user. And I'll confirm the password. I'll enter the full name for the user. And I'll enter the email. Once you've entered your admin information, click Save and Continue. Then click Save and Finish. We have successfully installed Jenkins. Click Start using Jenkins. And there you go, the Jenkins server is running. This is how you use Terraform to install and configure Jenkins on an EC2 instance. The next thing I want us to do is terminate the EC2 instance. To terminate the EC2 instance, let's go back to our Terraform file. In our Terraform file, to delete our resources, we'll type Terraform destroy. Once you type Terraform destroy, press enter. When you type Terraform destroy and press enter, the first thing it will do is show you the plan. Once you have reviewed the plan, type yes in here to accept it and press enter. And there you go. Terraform is now deleting the EC2 instance, and I'll give it some time to finish destroying it. This is how you use Terraform to install and configure Jenkins on an EC2 instance. This tutorial also shows you how you can use Terraform to SSH into your EC2 instance to run your shell script. If you have any questions or there's any part of this lecture you don't understand, please leave your comments below. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.